Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Hello friends, welcome to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad. Myself, Dr. Vinod L. Desai, Associate Professor serving at PG Department of Computer Science and Technology, Sardar Patel University, Vallabh Vidyanagar. Today's sessions we will talk regarding HTML forms, its use cases, the creation of HTML forms, adding various controls in HTML forms. Then after we will also discuss various attributes of HTML forms. So let's discuss first what is HTML forms. So in simple terms we can say that HTML form is nothing but a container of data. If we want to add certain data in HTML document, we can directly add, but that will be displayed as it is. But sometimes it is required that we need to have various kinds of data. It may be in the text form, it may be in the simple, we can say, selection kind of mechanism. So the form concept is available in HTML through which the user is allowed to submit the data, and the data once submitted through the HTML form will be processed at the backend by the server for further processing. So in simple terms, the collected data can be validated on the client browser using JavaScript. Okay, so whatever data that is user entered in a HTML form, that will be first validated by the JavaScript before it is submitted to the backend side to the server. Okay, form data submission involves storing it in the database, sending it to another server for further processing, or displaying it on the web page in some forms. HTML forms have different fields such as text areas, text boxes, radio buttons, checkbox selection fields, etc. Various kinds of controls can be added, and we can use it with the HTML forms. To create forms in a HTML document, we can use form tag, and once the controls are added, we can close again the form tag. To discuss various use cases of form tags, we have number of use cases of it. Among that, we can use the HTML form collecting the contact informations by asking the users to provide their contact or corresponding data through the message. We can also use HTML form for registration kind of mechanism. Then after, we can also create the form for the feedback kind of mechanisms. Okay, various companies are creating the feedback forms to collect the reviews of the specific event or program that has been organized by the companies. At the end of the program, they distribute these forms either in a physical form or link to the participants and asking for their concern feedbacks. Then after, the forms can be used for survey and polling mechanisms, okay, to collect the data for the upcoming events for the various suggestions. Then after, forms can be used for designing the orders mechanism. Okay, e-commerce websites especially uses order forms, like to mention the address, their contact details, so that the order can be dispatched properly on time to the customers. Then login forms, websites that requires users to log in to access certain mechanism specific kind of data. The organizations are generating or creating a login forms through which user logs in and accesses the data. The syntax to create the HTML form is looking very simple. We just need to add the form tag. Then after, we can add various controls, and once the controls are added, we can close the form tag as it is shown on our slides. Apart from that, now the form tag is having various attributes. Among that, the first attribute is action. So action attribute specifies the value, that value will be used once the form is submitted. Okay, so action redirects the submitted form to another process, or we can say to allows us to perform further processes. Usually the form data is sent to a file on the server when the user clicks on to the submit button. So the action attribute value defines the web page where the information is going. It can be either .php file, JSP file, ASP file, etc., or any URL where you want the process to be performed. If it is left empty, then by default it will be processed on the same page. The syntax to add a action attribute is simply form tag space and then after write action it is equal to specify the value. That value will be used to process the form data. Then another attribute is method. Okay, the method attribute in the forms instructs the browser on how to send the data from the form to a web server. That is possible in two ways. One is post and second one is get. The post attribute specifies that the whatever data that has been provided must be a sensitive data. That means with the post mechanism the sensitive data submission is there, then it is advisable to use. Attribute would be a method and the value would be post. But sometimes if the data submitted and manipulated by the form is not that much sensitive, then you should go for the get value in a method attribute. So the get attribute of the method attribute is the default value while submitting the form. It is not secure as data is displayed in the URL. If the method is not specified, the value is set to get by default. Okay, so the by default the value set is get. And so whenever any valuable information is not passed through the form, then you should always go for the get value, get method mechanism. If you have to differentiate get and post mechanism, then we can categorize either through the data submission. So submitted data will be displayed in a URL in a get mechanism, while in a post mechanism the submitted data is not going to be displayed or visible in a, we can say, address bar of the URL. Security, so in terms of we can security, get is not that much we can say secured compared to the post. Data length, the get method attribute has a limited data to be transferred, while in post there is no limit. Next, encryption type attribute. So it specifies how the form data should be encoded for the request. It is only applicable if we use the post method. So post method requires encryption type. The encryption type attribute is in HTML defines the encoding type of form content while submitting the form to the server. The possible values of encryption can be, it can be application/x www form URL encoded, then multipart/form data, then text/plain. So these are various we can say possible values, then we can pass through the encryption type. Then target attribute. So it specifies where to display the response received after the form is submitted. It has four possible values. It may either underscore self, underscore blank, underscore parent, underscore stop. Okay. We have already discussed and we have seen this in the anchor tag as well. So once the form is submitted based on the specified target attribute, the response is going to be redirected. Then after the name attribute is there, so it specifies simply the name of the form that we have created. Then no validate attribute. If the no validated attribute is set, all validations in the form elements are skipped. For example, entering a mobile number instead of email or leaving the required field empty. So it is very important that you must validate the form data before it is submitted to the server. So we always keep this attribute on. Next, autocomplete attribute. In forms, autocomplete is used to automatically fill the values which users have entered before. For example, if we have filled our names or email ID on any website previously, the moment we click on the name and email input field, it will automatically complete or suggest the name and email address we have entered earlier. We can change the value of the autocomplete to on or off based on our requirements. We will now talk regarding various controls to be added in HTML forms. Among that, the first one is label. We can use label controls to provide the captions to a particular controls to be created in our HTML forms. Okay, once the label is created, we can easily identify that what controls we are going to use and its purpose. To create a label controls in our HTML form, we can use a label tag. Then after the caption of a particular label, and once the caption is provided, we can close the label tag. Then after, the button control is there. It is very important control with respect to the form manipulation. So whenever user enters the data in a HTML form, it is required to submit those data to the server for further processing. So to submit the data, form data to the server, we need to have certain mechanism in the form of button, so that user can click on that button, and once the clicking takes place on a button, the form data will be submitted to the server. This button elements in the HTML can contain text or image or both, and it can be styled using CSS to match the website's design. To create a button, we can use a button tag, and then after we can specify the type of button to be created. It may be either submit button, it may be a normal button, or it may be a reset button. Then option group control is there. This tag is used to create a group of the same category options in a drop down list. The option group tag is required when there is a long list of the item exists. For syntax purpose, we can see that we have to use option group tag, and within option group tag we have a subtext in the form of options, and we can provide various options or values, and at last we can close the option group tag. Its attributes may be a label, okay, so to specify the label of the option group, and then after we can also use disabled, so it is used to disable the option group in a list. Another controls to be added in a form is text area. Generally text area is used for the multi-lining mechanism. So if we have a data that is having a more than one line of text, then in such case text field will not serve our purpose. So instead of text field we will create a text area. So generally the text area is consisting of row and columns mechanism. So how many columns and how many rows we have specified, in that text sense the text area is going to be created. So moving further, let's understand the concepts of text area, option group, button and label through the practical examples. Here you can see that simply above that the style tag is used to specify the styling mechanism of the body, form and button of the HTML forms. But the most important content required for our purpose is button simply. So here we have used a form tag, as you can see at the bottom of the document. Then after we have used a button tag, to create a button, and then after simply the form is closed. Okay, so in a form we have used the action attribute, and in action attributes we have provided a value in the form of demo.html, but that is simply just for the reference purpose. We are not performing any kind of operations. We have created a button tag, and button we have provided a type is equal to button, and the caption is given through the prompt value. Let's run it to understand it better. So as you can see that we have created a button simply, okay, and its caption is prompt. We can click it, okay, for further processing, but we haven't provided any mechanism on this button, so it's simply visible, but we haven't provided any mechanism for the processing on a clicking mechanism of a button. Then after we can have see autocomplete is there. So let us first see the autocomplete mechanism of a form. As we seen, so here we have created a form. As you can see, in a form tag we have provided an action attribute, target attributes, method attribute and autocomplete attribute at last. So in autocomplete attributes we have provided the value on, as you can see, and then after in the form we have created a label, okay, as you see. So label we already discussed that the caption of the label should be the table student name, and then after we are creating the text field for that particular student name. Okay, so what happens when we will execute this form? Let's execute first so that you can understand this better. Autocomplete. Now our form is visible to us, having a student name field and email ID field. So we will enter the value in a student name. Right now we are going to click on student name, so nothing is going to be displayed. Okay, when first time when I am clicking, nothing is displayed. I will write my name like Vinod, email address vinod@gmail.com, and then after I am clicking on submit button. Okay, we haven't specified any actions. Okay, right now we have, so it is not going to perform anything. So simply we have clicked it. Now I am just going to refresh this form. Okay, now second time when I click on this field, see here it pops up with the value that I have previously entered in the form of Vinod. So I can simply select it and fill the text field. In the second field as well, in an email address, when I click on this field, so it will pop up me with the previously entered email addresses. As you can see, I can select the one from the popped up values and then after fill the email address. So this is what the mechanism of autocomplete is. Okay, so you doesn't need to enter the values again and again once the form is getting executed. So this is what the mechanism of autocomplete attribute of a form tag is. We have text area field we have discussed. So let us create a text area. So form is created. Okay, having an action attribute. Then after we can say we have created a label, and then under the label we have created a text area having a name message, and row specified is 10 and column specified is 30. So two attribute is required to create the text area. One is rows and second one is columns. Specify the corresponding values, and based on the corresponding values the width and height of the column text area is going to be fixed, and that will be displayed on your HTML forms. And then after we can simply create a tab input type is equal to submit. So the button is going to be created for the submission purpose. Let's run the program. Text area of our interest. So you can see the text area is created. The coloring mechanism and other mechanism is provided to the CSS property we already specified. Okay, so here you can see we can write the content as per our requirement. Okay, and then after submit it. So whatever content you want to provide in a text area, just write it down and submit the form. So the data will be submitted to the corresponding server for further processing. So file select box is there. So input type is equal to file. That will allow us to pop up window of a file. Open dialog box will appear. You can select the file, and for further processing you can open it. Okay, the same way there are hidden controls available. So hidden form controls are used to hide the data inside the web page. So for that purpose you can use the tag input type is equal to hidden, and you can specify the value of a name for a particular hidden field. Then after we can see another important control is there in the form of select box. So it is used to choose one option from the drop down. Okay, if you have a number of options available and if you want to allow users to select a particular one value, then you should go for the select box controls. A select box control also called a drop down box, which provides an options to list various options in the form of a drop down list from where a user can select one or more options. So to create a select box option, just write a select tag, and within this select tag you can have a subtext in the form of options, and once all the options are given you just close the, we can say, select tag, and it will be easily available to the user. Okay, by default the first value in the drop down list gets selected. We can also change the default values by defining the selected attribute inside the option element. By default, the select element displays the one value, but we can change the size of the drop down by defining the size attributes to display multiple values inside a drop down. We can also define multiple attributes inside the select element if we want the users to submit multiple values at a time. To submit multiple values, press Ctrl and click on the values which you want to submit. So multiple selections is possible if you have a Ctrl key on the keyboard is pressed along with the selection. Okay, the syntax is simply select, then after ID if you want to specify name of the, we can say select controls, and then after simply specify the attribute multiple. So it will allow the multiple selections. Let's understand through the example. So this is what selection control is there. As you can see in the HTML form tag is there. Within the HTML form tag we have a label tag, then after select tag is there, which is specifying the player's name. Okay, the ID is players and name is favorite players, and within that I have created a number of options, that is using the option tag. Option, then value is given in the form of name. Okay, then after option tag, okay, be careful and take care that option tag requires to be closed, and once the value attribute is given, just provide it the specified caption and close the option tag at the end. So be careful to close the option tag. Each option tag requires to be closed to add another options in the same selection. So here we have created various options in the form of players, and then after we are closing the select tag, we are closing the select tag. So let's run the programs to understand it, how it works. As you can see, the selection control is displayed over here. When I click on the select control, it pops up me with a various values that I have added in a option tags. The player list is displayed over here. I can select any one and then after submit the form. So this is a select controls, that option groups. Okay, so here also we will use a select tag. Okay, then after we are using the option group, that is label is front end, another option is back end. Okay, front end and back end. So here what happens is actually the option groups allows us a logical grouping of our content. Okay, if you have various kinds of subjects, and that can be categorized like programming languages, fundamental subjects, core subjects, like that, and if you want to group it and to be displayed to the user, then you can go for the option groups. So here we have two groups, one is the front end and second is the back end. Okay, so the important tag is the select tag, main tag is select, as you can see here. Okay, and in select tag we are going to use option group. Okay, and then after we are providing various options of the front ends like HTML, CSS and JavaScript, as you can see. And then after in the second option group, so before you proceed further for the second option group, you need to close it. Previously created option group, as you can see, we have created one option group for the front end, and within front end we have created three options, that is HTML, CSS and JavaScript. For the second option group, we are again creating a backend of three option groups, that is Python, PHP and Java. And then after we are closing the second option group, and at last we are closing the select tag. So this way you need to create an option group of the logically grouped content. So select tag is the parent tag. Within the select tag we have to create various option group tags as a subtag of select tag. Let's test it. Option group. So here it displays us. See, when we click on this, okay, so it pops up with a front end and back end. So we can select anyone. By looking at this, we can understand that these three options are falling under front end. So I have to select anyone from the front end or either anyone from the back end. Okay, so based on our selections, it will be very easy to make sure that whatever data we have selected and displayed, that is proper and as per the requirement. Moving next is field set and legend. The field set tag in HTML5 is used to make a group of related elements in the form, and it creates the box over the elements. The legend tag is used to define the title or caption for the child's content. The legend elements are the parent elements. The syntax is very simple. You need to use field set tag and then after just provide the content. Let's check it through the practical to understand field set. See here, in a form tag we have created a field set, and within the field set we have first created a caption in the form of legend tag. Using the legend tag we said that we can create a caption. So caption given is name, and then after we have created a label, input type, label and input type. That means total 2 fields. Okay, so created a box kind of mechanism using the field set. Okay, so you can create a various kinds of field sets for further. See here, like this. Okay, one field set is created for the basic information, personal name and other information, and second field set for the contact informations, like that. Okay, let's run it to understand. So simply field set is a parent tag, and within the parent tag we can use a legend as a captions to subtag of field set, and then after we can create various controls which we require under that field set, or you can see in a particular box. To run it, see here, the field set concept looks like this. Okay, this is a one box in the form of a basic personal information in the form of name, and second box for the contact information, like that, and then after you can submit the form. So you can create n number of, so you can say, field sets for the different requirements of the form. You can design in such a way that first box requires a personal information, second box is concerned with the contact information, third box is concerned with the educational qualification, fourth one is with the experience. So likewise you can have a category kind of mechanism in a HTML form using the field set. Okay, and to have a caption you can use the legend. Moving next is data list element. The data list element defines a set of predefined options for an input element. Predefined options can be used. When a user clicks on the input element, user will see a drop-down list of predefined alternatives. The list attributes value of the input element must be similar to the data list element's ID attribute value. Then only the user will be able to see the input data. Okay, let's understand to practical. So it will be better to understand it. You can see here we have a form field, then after label, then after input list is there. See here, cars, and the name given is cars. Then after we have created a data list having ID cars, and various options is used. Okay, options for the car names. So various car options is provided, and then after we are closing the data list, and at last we are submitting the vacancy forms. So the main important is this one. Okay, and the input type is equal to, we have used this list. So data list is having a ID cars, and then after we are providing various options. So through this user will be provided with the list of available options, and through which user is allowed to select a particular options from the available list. Okay, let's run it. Select the private options, as you can see now. Once you click on the data list control, it will pop up. Moving next is color. So it is often required in the form to just show the color instead of any text. Input type color in the HTML5 allows you to do that. It shows the color which you want to display in the form. Typical scenario where it is being used is to show the status of a project or a page. So if you want to have a color selections, you can provide a color mechanism by just writing as input type is equal to color as a value. So it will pop up with the color one. Input type is equal to date. We can have a date mechanism. Okay. See here, whatever controls we have discussed that so far, that is created in this HTML form. For button, we have created buttons. Okay, see here the color control here. Input type is equal to color, this one. So we can have a color like this, input type is equal to color. So whenever we will click on that, the color box will be popped out to the user and user can select the particular color from this one. We will run it to understand. See here, this is the color control. You can select, user can select anyone like this. So color will be visible to the user. Then after the date control we have seen. So by writing simply the date, input type is equal to date, the date control will be visible to the user like this. See here, this one. Input type is equal to date, name you can specify anyone. So it will pop up with the date control like this, date picker kind of mechanism. So user can select a respective date, okay, and submit it. Okay, file controls, we have input type is equal to file as we discussed. So it will pop up with the file dialog and user can select the respective file. Input type is equal to file is there. See here, when you click on this, so it will allow you pop up with the file dialog and allow you to select the respective file. You can work with that. Okay, apart from that, we have said that there are various types of buttons available. So you can have a submit button and you can have a reset button as well. So if you specify submit button, input type is equal to submit, then submit button will be there, which allows us to submit the form to the server for further processing. And if you are creating a input type is equal to reset, the last one, that means it will clear the form data. Whatever data you have entered in the form, that will be cleared. It will reset the whole form. So that is the mechanism of reset button. Okay, so all the controls that is visible in this form we already discussed. Simple text field is created using input type is equal to text field. Okay. Let's see here, this is first a text field to be created using simply a input type is equal to text, name is equal to page name and placeholder is given as a text input. Placeholder is simply a hint to the user that what kind of value is expected by a particular controls in a field. So here in text input type is equal to text, we are asking the users to provide a, we can say text input, not any number or any other kind of data, simply a text input is required. Okay, so input type is equal to text allows us to create the text field. While we have created, asked for the, we can say labels, so you can create a label. And if you want a password field in the HTML form, then there is a input type is equal to password is there. So that allows us to create a password field. Okay, and that will have a default mechanisms in the form of, we can say, a wild characters, that the password is not going to be visible to the user. The same way you can have email address, as we said that you can have input type is equal to email, as you can see. Okay, so it will allow us to enter the email address. Then you can have the text area, rows equal to 5, calls equal to 60, whatever as per your requirements. Okay, so these are various controls that you can create in HTML forms, as you can see. Okay, but if you are going to enter a password in the password field, then it is not going to be visible. As you can see, it is displayed in the wild characters. So just try to create all these controls and understand the mechanism of HTML controls. Thank you very much. In these sessions we have discussed HTML forms, its various attributes, its effect, its use cases, and various controls that we can create to collect the informations from the user. Thank you very much.